Okay, we're live. There's no countdown. I forgot to set up a countdown. But my name is Cade, and we are going to talk about dental lab technology and how it grows with your lab, or it needs to grow as your lab grows. And as more digital stuff comes in, we're all affected by digital stuff no matter what size lab you are. So we got some really great people on the panel today to discuss every aspect of this from spec work computers and what they can handle all the way to servers and cyber security and internet. We're going to be talking about hitting all those important points. So this idea came from Brandon. I'm going to introduce Brandon. Brandon's Cottonwood Orthodontic Lab in Utah, Salt Lake City area, and he considers himself. I'm a small lab, just my wife. Brandon's, you'd say you're a medium lab.
Yeah, we are 24 employees, and I'm freezing on the screen right now. Do you guys see me okay? Is this working good?
Yeah, I can hear you, so that's an important part.
Okay, I'm delaying. So this is the exact thing I want to talk about. Once we start doing these kind of things, I mean, this is a $1,600 laptop I'm working on right now. I thought I bought it and had all my bases covered. But I find that what I want to share is my journey and my personal journey about where we went with the hardware and how I got there, and how hard it is sometimes to understand what you're buying. Sometimes it feels like another language. So I think also we're going to talk about storage needs and how to really scale these things, right?
Yeah. And so our rest of our panel is we got Mike Wright from ODL, one of the largest labs in the United States. Like, how many person lab do you have altogether?
I don't know. It depends on the day sometimes. Probably depends.
70?
70, yeah.
Okay. And that includes...
That's everybody.
Wire benders to digital designers and everybody. Yeah. So we all know... Michael, he's the progenitor, I guess, of EasyRx, which is a very important software for a lot of us ortho labs out there. So he's going to have a lot of knowledge on this. The other person on our panel is Jeff Player of ProTech Dental Lab in Vancouver. And how many person lab are you? Do you know that off the top of your head?
Mike and I are going to duke it out to see who's got the biggest lab here. Yeah.
I didn't tell him I was going to ask that. So.
Yeah, I run the orthodontic department at ProTech. We're a full service lab.
That's right.
The laboratory itself is close to 200. Our ortho lab is very similar in size to Mike's, I think.
Then that's a massive lab within a massive lab. And
yeah, we have a pretty substantial ortho component to a lab, which is a little bit unique, I think, in a full service dental lab. We started as ortho first and then integrated the other components. And I think that's what's led to our makeup being the way it is. In our laboratory, our crown and bridge department, our ortho department are of a similar size.
You know, and that's going to be interesting, your perspective, because there's different software for, I call it general dentistry, but CAD-CAM and, dentures and everything like that. So you got to apply. I'm sure there's just a handful of software for ortho labs, but dental labs, you got a whole cornucopia of softwares to choose from. And so we'll throw it back to Brandon. Brandon, I have a quote from you. Let me go back to my quote here. We bought the most expensive computers that should have worked great, but once multiple programs open, everything bogged down. So, like, why hardware matters more than ever is kind of the topic of right now.
It's such an easy game to kind of give up on because it gets so confusing and it feels overwhelming. And you assume that you're just buying this gaming computer that is expensive relative. I think we spent $1,800 to $1,900 on our first two computers, and this was 5 years ago. And you can see I'm not freezing right now, for example.
Yeah.
I actually stopped my AI. So this is the perfect example. This is one thing that I'm learning is how to start managing these things. But my employees are often working on multiple softwares. They might have Adobe open, they might have 3Shape open, and Mesh Mixer. And what we found was what we thought was not sufficient to operate these things, and they would freeze. And the worst thing is that they crash, and then you lose your work. And we don't have as much software. You mentioned that, like Jeff's got the slew, but we work on 3Shape a lot, and man, make sure you hit that save button a lot, especially if you don't have specifications. So
that's
yeah. Well, we went down that road, and just to sum it up, we thought that we were buying these gaming computers. We had, at the time, I think we had 16 to 32 gigabytes on some of these computers of RAM, and that just didn't seem to be enough.
Yeah, y'all were just now talking about 32 versus 64 gigabytes of RAM. And I just upgraded mine from 16 to 32, and it helped out a lot just with internet-based programs. So that's interesting. I believe it was Jeff. You were talking with Brandon about y'all.
Yeah, our current specs include a 32 gigabytes of RAM, and I think Brandon mentioned that when you get to the DICOM files, it's definitely true. The files are bigger. And as we do more surgical guide planning, it might be important to start looking at 64. But 32 works for us now, and we're a busy place with lots of design applications running. I'd like to preface this by saying I am not the IT expert. But when I asked my IT guy about it, he mentioned that there are other things that can affect performance. The network configuration and what's happening in the CPU versus the GPU. So I don't disagree with Brandon. 64 is better than 32, but 32 works for us right now. And that's our current state of the art.
And one of the things that you mentioned yesterday that I'm actually going to start, and there's multiple things we were talking before this show started that really caught my attention. But one thing that you mentioned was I talked to you about how much Adobe slows down my computer, and you talked about you might have your primary program, but there's additional programs running off of that. I forgot the term that you used.
It's a suite. It's a suite of programs, basically Adobe, and we use it very sparingly. But again, from my IT guy, well, maybe they're running the entire suite and they don't realize that they're using up way more memory than they need to, depending on what they're using it for.
So see what's going on in the background, and maybe you can maximize what you already have if you're finding that you have troubles, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So as far as like workstations, Brandon, were you just completely researching? Because there's a difference between like a digital design computer and a data entry computer. And so what were you mainly researching? Is digital design computers?
Yeah, so we call them workstations. And that's actually the proper term for them. So a workstation is a computer that is more capable on a graphics side. And I'd love to share I'm going to share my screen here and show you some examples and kind of just give you some quick examples of where I went wrong and what I thought was good enough. But we had talked about how we try to cycle these down to regular computers. So one thing that we just thought, just to kind of show you here, this is the computer that I'm currently working on. And I think this was about $1,300, $1,400. I got a pretty good deal on it. And one thing that I found was, you're going to see these listings here for your graphics card. And they all have like different numbers, 30, 60, 40, 70, RTX. And one thing that I was working with was I had the misconception that your regular processor here, so you have to think of this as two different processors, right? So you have your primary processor that processes the data and kind of is the workhorse of what's going on. And then you have your graphics card, which is a secondary processor, and it's processing the graphics separately. If you don't have a graphics card, your regular processor is tasked with doing all of that. And you can have issues with data. And we've actually had some cases, and I haven't narrowed this down. I'd love for you guys to put on this, but we've had some cases where doctors have done designs on their own personal computers that didn't have graphics cards, and we've actually had fit issues.
Whoa.
Yeah, the model that they scanned, the model that they sent with the work that they did were completely two different models. I mean, we're talking, decameters here, but it was enough to make something not fit. Have you guys ever identified anything like that? And I think that's why it's so important if you're going to get into this game, you've got to have a graphics card. And where do you start with that?
Well, I know just with like my nesting software I use for my Formlabs, every time it boots up, I get a little alert from GeForce or whatever saying it's been activated. So just my nesting software uses my graphics card. It looks for the graphics card first before it uses the CPU. So if you hear us use GPU, it's graphics card, and then kind of what runs your display and big programs like that, and then CPU, which is the data cruncher, I guess. But I never even thought of a lower end computer changing a file, almost corrupting it.
I just don't think it processes it. So once they import the STL, and this is just kind of a couple cases that I've seen here, right? I haven't been to have enough statistically significant number of cases in order to validate this. But we've had about 4 cases where doctors have submitted things, and there's a difference in the model. And this comes back to, we used to have a scanning service before all the doctors had scanners. And when I used to I was taking 4 or 5 scans a week. And, sometimes I would see the screen like flash, and the model would just make this small little shift. And I would rescan. And whenever I checked that, there was distortion. And then we still see, do you guys see distortions in your 3D models ever? I mean, we've experienced some of that. And these could be the causes. We're not sure.
Yeah, we do. I mean, we do check, but we might be talking about 2 different things. But we do check STL file, the raw scan data versus the printed model data to make sure that our printers are staying aligned with what we expect to see. But that might be a little different from the graphics card issue we're talking about here.
Well, and I think we're getting a little off the topic here. That's my fault. So, but yeah, I think it's just my point I'm trying to make, guys, is I really think it's important for you to understand what the minimum standards are and what we really need in order to run proper software. Right?
And Brandon, I would agree with those specs you showed on screen there with that laptop. That looks very similar to what we consider the state-of-the-art design workstation right now. The Ultra 9, the GeForce. I think there's a 5000 series that's now a little more powerful than the 4000, I guess. But otherwise, everything else, the 32 gigs we talked about earlier rather than 16, and 2 terabytes of storage would make sense to me. So.
Well, here's a different one here. I mean, you can see where this one sets up. Here's one where you have 16 gigabytes of memory, and obviously that's a great starting point, but you need to make sure that that's upgradable to 32. And that's where Cade was kind of talking about earlier, was we bought all these computers, and the biggest mistake we did was we thought we were getting a good deal. We were like, hey, here's a gaming computer, and we're getting it for $1,600 to $1,800 when the rest of them were going for about $2,400. Well, come to find out was, 3 or 4 years down the road, we couldn't upgrade the memory on the motherboard. The reason, they had the basic specs, they had a great graphics card, and they had a good processor, but the motherboard was what was outdated. And so when we went to update that memory, we couldn't do it. And one way they go about that memory is, if you look at what they're talking about, there's different hertz or speeds. So you can have like 4200 or 3200. You need to make sure that you're at least at the 4200 level, if not at the 5000 or 5200 level of processor speed.
Go on.
Oh
Oh no,
yeah.
I was just going to let you know. I have I'll share my screen here. Something I recommend to kind of put a bow on this is PC Part Picker. And we're mainly talking about Windows computers because they're upgradable and stuff like that. If you go to PCPartPicker.com, you can actually put in the motherboard that you're getting. Let's say it's this MSI one. It will tell you the max memory you can get, what type of processor you can get, the types of memory speed that this will accept. So, and if you choose that one first, it will then filter out all the graphics cards that don't work with that motherboard.
Yeah. Right.
So
it's another pretty useful tool.
Yeah, so and then of course there's Amazon links, and it shows the price, so you can see the price going up and down. You know, Newegg, Best Buy, B&H. It shows all those in here.
Oh, that's good to know.
And you can watch it.
Wow.
So that's PCPartBigger.com. So when you're looking, if you're medium lab like Brandon is, moving into the larger lab and really depending on your workstations, he's definitely had some frustrations with that, trying to pick out different brands of stuff. And so I think that's I didn't turn off my ringer, I'm sorry.
So one of the last things I'd say about the workstations, and Mike, maybe this is true for your operation too. We used to try to separate data entry computers from design computers. We'd order them separately. And now basically what we do is order design computers matching very closely to what Brandon was showing on screen there, design only, because we know we're going to basically hand them, they'll be hand-me-downs to the data entry after a few years, so we can extend the useful life of those computers. So what starts as a design computer for us becomes a useful data entry computer 3 years down the road, something like that.
You mentioned, I think I wrote a note that you have a 4 to 5 year life cycle with the design computers, and then they get, the hand-me-downs to the younger kids, the data entry.
Data entry, yeah, because there's some computers, I think Brandon mentioned this, you have more computers than staff, right? Like we have over 200 workstations here. And some of those workstations are not running Exocad and 3Shape and all the design software all day. They're doing mainly data entry to our CRM, our customer resource management base, and their emails and internet connections, but nothing beyond that really.
I think Brandon said that he's actually using a Chromebook for some case entry or scanning cases in. So yeah, you can use all sorts of levels of computers in your lab depending on what their function is going to be. But one last thing is the hard drive, and I think this will springboard us into storage and local storage and offsite storage, but like a hard drive, I believe, Brandon, on your screen, you had what was it? M.2 or SSD,
yes.
which you're running your Windows on and your programs on because it's just so much faster.
Well, absolutely, and we can even take a look. I'd like to just kind of put out there that with what you're looking at, guys, just a couple examples of what I found. I mean, you can go from $2,700, $2,800, or find computers on sale at Costco here for $1,099. You can find rebates. These will get you going, guys, but please be aware of what's going on. The other thing you talk about, most of these computers nowadays have what they call solid state drives. If they don't have a solid state drive, you're really in trouble. So the idea is, the way we operate is we utilize a central storage system. We use a NOS system. I think Jeff said he does the same thing. That's shown here. So our server and our computers all have solid state drives to help improve that speed and data access. So your operating system should work off of a solid state drive. All your computer programs, your lab managed, like we use Magic Touch and everything run off of a solid state, but we use just standard old school drives for our storage. And I think we're around 50 to 60 terabytes of capability of storage. And we have redundancies as well. And that was one thing that we were talking about earlier. So we literally have our server, and then we have these cloud storage units here in another building. We're broken up in 2 buildings. And then I've got one more of these at home that is the final backup. So we've got 3 versions of our software being backed up and encrypted as it goes on a daily basis. But yeah, so does that answer your question, Kate?
Yeah, that was perfect. Because these use the spinning disk, the old school spinning disk, just because of the cost reasons. Those are so cheap. You get so many terabytes per dollar. But you were talking about these actually are made to, if the drive fails, you just pull it out and stick another one in, and it maintains your database.
Yeah, we talked about kind of the transition from going from small lab. Like we originally used a really high-end computer for our server initially when we were like about a 10-person lab. And then we had our IT person install what they call a RAID card, and we had a RAID 2. So we had 2 drives on that RAID 2. And we used an offsite company at that time called Carbonite to back up that computer. I had some issues with that. You always have to keep an eye on those things, especially when you're doing them yourselves. And I think Michael has really taken the approach of just paying and outsourcing for those in our conversation. I'd love for him to kind of share his direction with where he went on that. But to kind of finalize that, we ended up going to nowadays what we call a RAID 5. So something like this where you have 8 or 10 disks, you're going to actually create 5 copies of your storage, and then you can lose up to 3 of those hard drives without losing any data. And that happens. Like we'll have a hard drive fail, and I'll order one, and then in the middle of that coming to me, we'll have another hard drive fail. My IT people said you got to do a RAID 5, and that has saved my butt many times. But that once again, that adds up into costs, and that's where doing cloud storage might be beneficial, and you don't have to have as much IT support if you're going with these online services.
And so, Brandon, you have redundancy across the hard drives themselves, but also across multiple NAS servers, right? You mentioned in separate buildings and at home. Is that right?
That is correct. Yeah.
And that sounds similar to what we've done here. Same thing. We run out of multiple buildings. So we have our disaster, backup plan from the First Avenue location is wired into Second Avenue and vice versa. For the data that's stored in those buildings, and then redundancy offsite to our IT management company that I think has that based in multiple locations as well in case there's a geographical problem. So anyway, it sounds like our setup is fairly similar to you, Brandon, and that's interesting because I think we started the same thing probably when we first started designing taking digital files, scanning models. Probably started with our restorative team, I think, scanning Procera dies, back in the early 2000s. Once we found we had digital files we had to manage, and we probably started with a single computer server that then morphed into multiple NAS setups. So anyway, similar. I'd like to hear what Mike has to say about the cloud. Mike, we're talking over you, so it's your turn to talk.
No, that's I'm learning as we go because I don't know much of any of it. I know a little bit about a little bit because we outsource our IT, and it's because I'm not super versed when it comes to the hardware. I love the software side of things, so everything that we do is mostly cloud-based. And the last thing we did was we did everything cloud storage-wise as far as our server. So we have a cloud virtual server, and what that allows us to do is we use something called LucidLink, and it it's just a piece of hardware that seamlessly makes it seem that when you're working on the cloud, it's almost as if you're working in real time. So as long as you have, your speeds up and down, everything is synced with the cloud as you're working, because you're working off the cloud. So it's almost like a translator that's happening. And it's very, it's the way that I looked at it is you don't have to worry about the physical hardware anymore. You don't have to worry about the scaling. You press a button and then you can get more storage, you can get more power. Nothing's going to fail. There's redundancy. And we ended up seeing that it was cheaper on a monthly basis because the backups were a lot cheaper than us having to back up locally up into the cloud. So you can store massive files, you can pull things down quickly. And so there was a lot of, I guess, discernment in looking at that, because it was kind of scary. It's like we've had on-premise servers for such a long time. But I guess it got to the point where we didn't want to deal with any more of like the server room drama. Is it going to go down? Is it not going to go down? Is the AC going to work? Is this plug going to unplug? But the other part is, as you're growing, we wanted to scale instantly without having to deal with the hardware. So for me, I'm so busy. I'm tired all the time. I just want to have it manage itself, and now, you put, it's the upfront cost is a little bit, but at the end of the day, it is a little bit cheaper overall. So that was our strategy that we worked through.
Do you worry about loss of connectivity? Do you, like, what happens if the internet goes down? Is that?
Yeah, so we have fiber coming in the building. So we're doing, I think we're doing a gig up and a gig down as far as the speeds go. So it's pretty quick.
Yeah.
And that's a direct hard line into the building. And then if that goes down, we have a backup for Starlink, and then Starlink automatically boots up, and then we have the ability to pull off from the satellite. So we obviously have weather situations here in Buffalo. So if it does go down, we have to have the redundancy. And we were talking before the show too, that when the internet goes down, that's our biggest bottleneck, or our biggest issue, because then my digital team has to go home. That our ERP system is on the cloud. We're running every software on the cloud. There's only one or two that we run locally, but that's about it. And there's not a lot that you can do. Even our 3D printers are connected to the cloud.
But
so
let me ask, you say most of the software's run on the cloud, like you're using virtual computers on the cloud.
Well, we're using cloud-based systems.
Okay.
We're using CADflow as an example, which is managing all of that. EasyRx that we're using is on the cloud. Our ERP system is Odoo, and that's a cloud-based ERP system.
Okay, a dumb question. What's ERP?
Oh, it's like an enterprise system. It's how you run your manufacturing shop. So look, EasyRx is an ERP.
Okay.
It manages your business.
Yeah.
And so when you're looking at just as you start to jump up in your organization, there's other pieces of software that you can use that give you more features. And so Odoo, for an example, they give you the source code to work off of, and it's all online, and then you can build off of it to customize it, for your laboratory or for any business.
Oh,
so
wow.
We jumped on that bandwagon because we just had a lot of customizations that we needed.
Did you ever consider Magic Touch, Mike, or what do you see as superior with the Odoo over?
So Odoo is it's native cloud. So we don't have to do anything on premise. That was the big thing. Odoo it's actually the fastest growing ERP system in the world right now. But the big thing is that we get to develop on top of it. So we can customize anything we want. We can customize how it looks. We can customize how it performs. We can create systems within it. So what you get with Magic Touch is what you get.
Yeah.
With Odoo, they'll give you.
How Magic Touch looks?
Pardon?
You don't like how Magic Touch looks? I know you're a design guy, so I
don't about that at all.
They might be listening.
Yeah, you just never know. Hey, whatever works for you is what works for you.
Yeah.
I wanted to have the control, and when you have some of these systems, you're stuck within their ecosystem, and you can't really do anything. And as you start to grow, there's just unique challenges that you would, that I'm sure you guys come to that you wish you would have the ability to be able to do.
Yeah.
I want to be able to build this workflow, or I want to be able to add this feature set, or I want to be able to, build this dashboard and report without having to have a million spreadsheets or get 100 numbers and try to sift through to get the one number I actually need.
I think in particular too for ortho, I know we're going a little off topic here, but it's probably relevant. Is that it's nice to have the option to make things more ortho specific, because we ended up in Magic Touch. It's been a very useful system for us, but it's mostly because of what it could do. It's set up more for restorative laboratory. And then we have modified it and adjusted it and made it work for our ortho department. And of course, our restorative team loves it, right? But I've always found it's not perfect for ortho. We've always got to twist it a little bit. Right?
Yeah, and we've tried to, what we've tried to do with our system is to keep it more manufacturing. So it's not, so it doesn't back us into a corner if something doesn't work. We have to make something, whether it's one, it's one
a
product,
widget,
but we're looking at making widgets. So how do I manage the flow of that through the laboratory? And I want to be able to control where that goes, because now it's hitting different departments. It's going through 3D printing, and now it goes through 3D metal printing. Some things are still going traditionally, and we have to be able to track and manage all of that, and then have the system flow without being stuck. So now it comes with its challenges, because somebody hasn't thought about it. Some of these systems like Magic Touch and EasyRx and some other things, they've thought about how the uniqueness of a laboratory works, and it solves some of the challenges, and we have to come up with those. So
Magic Touch has a module now, production tracking, that we still have some bugs in it, but we're working with it. Same concept. How do you follow each piece in the laboratory without necessarily having a pan in your hand?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know much about Magic Touch. Go ahead.
Oh, so I would like, so we use Magic Touch as well. And I would like to give a little bit of credit though for them. You can put in requests and they'll make some modifications for you. One of the biggest ones that I just had was, and I had to push pretty hard for that. I actually emailed some of you guys, and I think I was trying to get some, because the more people who complain about what they want, the faster silence. But we found having an on hold for our lap slips on our doctors was valuable, and they just added this feature, and I just wanted to comment on and appreciate it that they created it. So what can happen is the assistants can go in there, create a case, create a digital WebRx, and place it on hold for the doctor to come back and approve it and change it before it's fully submitted to the lab. And it's been absolutely life-changing for our lab.
Do you see it granted? Does it sit in a status that you can't adjust or something, or what is it? What happens with that when it's on hold?
It is a status that they have control over. So they have a separate, I was trying to show it, but once I opened that window, show it, you guys saw me slow down. So once again, RAM on this computer, I do have it ordered. So it does give them an on-hold status, and then they can go in there and they pull that up on saved cases, and then they submit that. And if you want to, I'd be happy to show you that. You can zoom in, and you just need to update it. I think it's out there for everybody. But yeah, I mean, these things are really hard, and I am looking for software that is more customizable.
Don't get me wrong, we love Magic Touch, but it's just as far as being there's no perfect system. So I understand why looking outside of that ecosystem might make sense to somebody.
Well, I'm going to look into your, what was it that you were using again, Michael?
It's Odoo, ODOO.
Okay.
It's an app-based system where there's different apps that are in there that you can use. You can use them if they're helpful, if they're not helpful, but it pretty much manages everything. You can have a fleet of drivers that are in there. You have an app for accounting. You have an app for manufacturing. You have an app for marketing. You have your CRM in there.
Wow.
And what's good about it is one database. So we're all talking within the same system, all access to the same work order. And so with that, they have a DocuSign system in there, so you can send your documents out. So they have like 30 or 40 different apps in there to be able to and each one of them is customizable. You do have to have a developer. So it's a little bit. And you
use this in conjunction with your current labs management system, or is this what you're using the lab?
That's what I was going to ask.
Management system. This manages the entire laboratory except for cases coming inbound. So we still have EasyRx as our prescription management system. And then once that comes in, it pushes it through into Odoo, but we're able to automate on the front end, and Odoo takes it and then sends it automatically to CAD flow. Once it comes back, Odoo manages where that's going as far as the printers and the folders, so that OccCam can take it and push it into the printers. So, but those are all things that we are able to build and control. And that's why we wanted to make a change to get out of, or to get into something that we can manage.
well, like we get into webhooks. So
Yep.
is it pulling from EasyRx? You were able to integrate the two
Yeah,
to talk to each other, API, that kind of stuff.
yeah. So there's an open API on both sides, and so we're able to pull in cases from EasyRx to be able to push them directly into Odoo, and we take it from there essentially.
It that
And
so
Odoo
you're
would work with Magic Touch, is what you're saying as well.
Pardon me?
It would not integrate through an API with Magic Touch.
I don't think with Magic Touch it would make sense.
Because there'd be a lot of redundant features probably.
This is a replacement for everything that you use.
Interesting. Yeah, I love that idea.
This sounds like another ORG lecture.
yeah.
I think we need to have a meeting. I want to hear more. Well, and we talked about connectivity. I'd like to bring this up too. This is a big one because I think it's a huge expense. Do you guys use Wi-Fi, or are you wired into every computer? Because we ended up wiring every computer, which is in the short term expensive, but we find that we just have more reliable. I don't have service issues. We still have a backup that's Wi-Fi throughout there, and have access points throughout our lab, like 6 of them. But what are you guys finding, and how are you managing that as far as that connectivity goes?
So we do both. We have internet that comes into the building, and the desktops are wired in to not so much for not for service, but just for stability. And then all of our technicians have iPads, and that's how they're accessing Odoo in the app. And so we have Wi-Fi throughout for those portable mobile devices.
Oh.
And you don't have, we used to have issues. And once again, this was back in the day when we were using, this is the important thing. I think too, is a smaller, medium, a 4 or 5 person lab, I would really utilize some good network systems like Unify for your switches.
Yes,
and your
we do the same thing.
We went way too long using, I don't even know if it's right, like Cisco kind of brands or your Lynx kind of system. And I don't know, do you guys, it's why I never went back to using the wireless, was we would have what we call, my IT department would call like storms, and the systems would bog down and you have to restart everything in the middle of the day.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, that's why we have managed IT. We'll just put a ticket in.
We're predominantly wired. I mean, we just use for portable, the odd portable device would be on wireless, but we're mainly wired in, and each workstation has its own little mini computer wired in, because we just find that wireless can drop.
So
Right.
I think that's something important to understand when you scale. Make sure you're, in my opinion, make sure you wire your computers as you move forward. You don't want to be there one day when you have to wire in 20 or 30 computers because you continually having these drop, having to reset routers.
Brandon, what was the name of that network router, or what you were saying?
Unisys?
Unify.
Or Unify?
Okay.
Here, I've got my screen if you want. I'll show you this. And this system is really great too. This allows my IT department, it can be whatever size you need it to be, really. And the good thing is if you build this with a beginner level, it will let you scale to whatever you need to do. And there's your network, there's, whatever you need as far as internet connection. This is a great system.
It reminds me of the hotels, like you see the little Wi-Fi or convention centers and stuff.
It gives you a lot of control, and it allows you to even manage things. You can see here, you even have security that you can run through the system. So that's what I really love about it. And there's so many people out there, no matter what IT service, if you're using Unify, they're going to be able to understand what needs to be done with it, so.
And I think that's we're coming up on our end point, and I don't think we want to touch cybersecurity in this one, because that's a whole nother animal, unless y'all want to do a quick speed dating round on what you're doing for cybersecurity. And we can also include what you're doing for IT. Is it inside your lab? Do you have an IT guy or gal, or is it external? So who wants to start with that? Cybersecurity.
I only have one tidbit for cybersecurity, and I said it to you guys before. Make sure that you have something in place to be able to manage it, because everybody's got a target on their back, and it's up to us to reduce that target. But somebody gave me this one piece of advice that says, make sure that when you're out in the public and you're on public Wi-Fi, don't do anything that is going to be sensitive, because most of the hackers that are there, they sit in the airport Wi-Fi lounge or the airport lounges, and that's where they start to grab stuff. So anywhere you could just go onto 5G, go on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's one thing I use absolutely religiously. I only connect to my cell phone, even if there's free Wi-Fi out there. I use my hotspot, and then when I'm at hotels, that's the other thing. Get a VPN. And then the other thing I have is I have a VPN to my server, which is great, guys. You can log in to your server and do the things that you need to do remotely if you don't have the software on your actual portable computer. But when you go through that VPN, if I'm at a hotel, I can log into my QuickBooks and see my financials or pull data like that, and I know I'm secure through that. Or you can have a VPN service like Nord, which I also recommend for security and data. So, but it really blew my mind that Jeff had a really, we were talking earlier, I'm really double thinking, and I probably am going to double up on my security. I think, Jeff, did you want to share like your thoughts and experiences of what happened, and that this just is not, hearsay, right?
Sure. Yeah. We did have a ransomware attack, basically. I can't remember the year, but it's a few years back, and we were fortunate that we were pretty proficient at backing up all our data. But essentially, what happens is they come in and encrypt your entire database. It just happens, boom, and you get a message that now they want a certain amount of money to unlock all your data. And so we worked at it for a couple of days and utilized the backup to get ourselves back up and running. And luckily, never had to go down the pathway of paying anybody. But it's pretty scary when you come in and all the computers are black. And when you're a big operation and you got to start explaining to customers why nothing's working the way it's supposed to. So definitely it made us up our game with cybersecurity. And we now currently use an in-house full-time IT guy who helps mostly with setting up workstations and managing local networks and any troubleshooting that we need on site. And then off-site, we have a cybersecurity team that helps with, security architecture for the whole thing, making sure that we're not vulnerable to attacks, the multi-factor authentication, managing email, making sure we're running the latest software. There are more holes in your system than you realize until you get an expert looking at it. So that, I would say, the number one thing is consider some kind of cyber security team to help you manage that, and at least take care of the simple stuff, like don't have all your techs logging into multiple computers using lab 123 as their password.
And how about fire? I mean, that's a big thing that we've had for years, is a separate firewall, a real firewall, right? Not just what's in your, your modem's
Software. Yeah.
You need a separate piece of equipment with software to manage these things, right, guys?
Yes.
And so, Mike, your IT is external.
Yes.
But do they have people that come into or is it all remoting in, checking things, closing doors and shutting
Still
windows?
remote. Yeah, they're local, so they will come in if they need to, but most of it's done remotely.
Okay.
Same for us, honestly. And then our IT guy, of course, liaises with the IT company when we see issues, and sometimes we'll create a ticket with them to say, we're seeing this problem, help us solve it, depending on what the problem is, if it's something that's beyond the in-house IT guy's scope. Oh,
interesting. That's a good problem to have. Kind of like having a in-house lab person that communicates with the lab. Because I like my in-house lab people that I communicate with because we can talk the same language, and they know what's possible and what's not possible for things like that. But let's wrap it up here. If y'all have any questions that are watching this or on the replay, put them down below. We'll try to get answers for you. There's one thing I want to really promote, and that's our show. The ORG, I believe we're all four going to be there, so you can pick our brains. Don't pick mine. I don't have anything in it. But orthodonticresource.com, you can register for our conference. We have an early bird special going on until January 1st. I believe you get $50 off your registration if you register before January 1st. So that is April. Do I have the date?
And it's 100% refundable up to a certain point too. So
right,
book it now. Get your flights now, and get on board with it. And if you can't make it, yeah, you can get your money back, right?
Yes, yeah. So we know things happen. You know, you're about to leave for the conference, and you get ransomware for your whole computer. You know, things that we were talking about. Something crashes, and you can't come to the conference. We can refund you, no problem. Just go ahead and get your tickets now. I thought I had a QR code I could pop up here, but I don't. I don't know where it's at. So, with that being said, it is April 10th and 11th, 2016. So you have just a few more months left.
2026.
What is it?
2026.
2026. Sorry. Thank you.
Next year.
Yeah, next year. Oh,
I'll
you've
just
already
say
missed it.
too, I'll help you, Kate. I attended for the first time last year, and really enjoyed it. And I think it's quite useful for labs of all sizes. It's interesting to see such a nice mix of lab sizes and different people from around the country. It's a good event. I highly recommend it.
And you're not competitors there. You're gonna have lab owners from all over there. You're not competitors when you're there. When you leave, you are. You know, but when you're there, you're sharing information. You're like just our conversation here, having the same kind of problems, no matter what size lab you are. So, any last words?
Thanks for setting it up, buddy.
Yeah. Thanks, Cade.
Thanks for organizing, Kate.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely. I just sat back and enjoyed and learned a lot of stuff that I need to change in my lab. So, with that being said, I'm going to end it there and thank y'all for being a part of this panel. Mike and Brandon and Jeff, thank you for sharing your expertise with the rest of the world that you have that most of us don't.
Thanks,
Thanks,
guys.
Kate. Our pleasure.
Thank you.
All right. See y'all later.
Say, bye.